Welcome to the Communications Podcast. I'm Alana Roberts, and today we will be having a discussion on intercultural communications in sports. Sports is a large category that ranges from toddlers to the pros, but today we will be focusing on the collegiate level. We will see what role intercultural communications plays in it. Let's get started. A little bit of background information. I'm a transfer student from a school in Bartlesville, Oklahoma. I played on the women's soccer team for Oklahoma Wesleyan, and it is one of my favorite things I will ever do. I love the sports world, but more specifically women's sports. I was blessed to play on a top 10 national team alongside many other women, but most of my teammates were not even from the U.S. I was in a very different culture when I arrived for Hell Week for training camp. Soccer in the United States is not a huge deal like football, but at this school, playing soccer was it. Playing soccer was the only sport that was major. This was because we had a dominant intercultural student school. About a little over 50% of the students were internationals and stayed with host families. Most of my teammates were from Brazil, Kenya, Spain, Sweden, Italy, and even Russia. I was totally out of place when I arrived. I only spoke one language. I spoke English. I was from East Texas, and I was a freshman with no experience on a college level field. I had to learn words and signals to communicate with my teammates on the field because of a cultural difference. Soccer is different here in the States than it is around the world. I excelled on the field with my teammates, but was struggling off the field to connect. I was so worried I would say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing. Sooner or later, I adapted to this new microculture that I had been thrown into. I learned what to do and not. Soon, I felt part of the team and the family that we had built. I just had to learn how to communicate in an intercultural environment. This podcast will give some of those definitions and other resources to see the ups and downs of intercultural communications in sports. Before we go further, definitions are important so the point can be made and understood. First up, we have intercultural communications. This is defined as two people from two different cultures interacting in a verbal or nonverbal communication. Next, we have communication. Simple, I know, but this definition is the understanding and interpretation of message between individual and groups of people that are verbal and nonverbal. Up next, we have culture. This is a set of values, beliefs, and behaviors shared by a group of individuals that share a past story in verbal and nonverbal communication systems. Next up, we have intercultural conflict, and this definition is pulled from our textbook for the semester. This is the implicit or explicit emotional struggle between persons of different cultures over perceived or actual incompatibility of cultural ideologies and values, situational norms, goals, face orientations, scarce resources, styles, processes, and/or outcomes in a face-to-face context. The last one that we will be going over is going to be microculture. This is a set of values, beliefs, and behaviors shared by a group of individuals that share a past story in verbal and nonverbal communication systems, but it varies from the dominant culture group. So this is the little group inside the big group. Understanding just a few of these definitions will help better prepare you for the rest of this podcast and for the real world. Sports is something that you can connect with a person and not even need to speak the same language. This happens a lot here in the United States. People from all over the world wish to have an opportunity to come to the U.S. and get an education. And one of the best ways is by playing a sport. This is pulled from a study, actually, a case study of Chinese athletes in U.S. collegiate sports. There are ups and downs to this, but certainly more positives. Being thrown into a new culture is scary, and it can bring nerves and worry. A microculture is created when a team is formed. There's a positive that happens when a team bonds. According to the Team Identification, Social, Psychological Health Module, Group Dynamics 3 Research and Practice, Being part of a team is very good for people and gives a point of purpose. This helps with the worry of intercultural communications and can help with the intercultural communication apprehension. It's bound to happen, conflict. When you bring all sorts of different people from different cultures, conflict will occur. Values are different, tastes in music is different, and how you do everyday tasks is different. While I was having lunch with one of my Brazilian friends, she got on to me for not eating all my food. I had maybe a piece of lettuce and some corn left on my plate. No big deal, I thought. But apparently I was very wrong. To her, it seemed as if I didn't like the food that I had been given, or I was being disrespectful. In her culture, I had offended her, but in mine, I was just done with my food. This was a small conflict, I know. They can range and go as big as religion and morals at some points. It is important to give grace and have an understanding that there are differences. There's a language barrier, cultural misunderstandings, and different communication styles that all can come into play in conflict. But having a knowledge that is possible to happen and being willing to learn and adapt to the situation can help reduce problems and conflicts. This is pulled from Trapped in Your Jargon or Lost in Translation, California Management Review. If we had a sponsor, this is where it'd be, but instead we're going to take a break, drink some water, and listen to a little bit of music. All right, and we're back. Coaches and players should get the chance to learn about strategies to improve intercultural communications amongst their teams. Organizations like the NCAA and the NAIA could enhance their intercultural communication skills with tips and more to the schools that are in their divisions. But schools and coaches can start doing this without the help of the major organizations and just take charge. They can do this by simply discussing culture awareness and what that means, telling their players that respect is a must when dealing with your teammates from other cultures and opponents. There are also techniques like active listening, nonverbal cues that can be given to bridge the communication gap and just clarify assumptions that can make a world of a difference on the team. Simple but so important. Intercultural communications in sport is a subject that can be seen all around the U.S. in college athletics. It is important to address that the intercultural environment is great for the program and also the sport. Having so many different cultures can bring a new level to the sport and new perspectives on the game and life. The impact the intercultural communication plays in the lives of athletes is more than we know, and is necessary to address tools to help them so that the transition is easier and more success and less conflict is achieved. You'll be able to see all the sources used for this podcast. There's 12 of them, all great resources if anyone wants to research any more. But otherwise, thank you for listening, and I will see you next time on Communication Podcast, and enjoy the rest of your summer.